I'm Tariq Melrose. If today's official statement left you confused, don't worry. It was designed that way. Vague enough to deny, bold enough to distract, and just harmless enough to fly under the radar. Not here. We shine light on the strategy and we name it. Subscribe now, because understanding the playbook is the first step to rewriting it. Marjorie Taylor Greene tried to smear public media. Then Jasmine Crockett torched her lies live on air, without mercy. Welcome to the clip where we expose GOP disinformation, defend free speech, and show what real accountability looks like in Congress.
Ms. Marr, your public statements and social media posts reflect left-wing ideology and blatant opposition to free speech. After all, you were the head of Wikipedia for many years, which is a platform that doesn't tell the truth. Let's walk through some of your statements so the public can understand your personal views. You said your fellow Americans just elected Donald Trump as president again this past November. You called him a deranged racist and sociopath. You posted on X that America is addicted to white supremacy. It's appalling. You've publicly chastised using the phrase boy and girl, which you said erases the language for non-binary people. There's only two genders, by the way. Ms. Marr, the federal funding that your outlet receives comes from all American taxpayer dollars, not just from your viewers who support such statements as these. Let me inform you, and so that your federal funding is also paid for by the other half of the country, the 77 million Americans who voted for President Trump, someone you called a deranged, racist sociopath. Ms. Marr, many find your pro-censorship and anti-free speech views more concerning than your politics. The only speech you like seems to be speech that you agree with. In 2021, you called the First Amendment the #1 challenge in American journalism because it makes it hard to crack down on bad information. You said in a TED Talk that our reverence for the truth might be a distraction. You've also expressed support for deplatforming individuals you view as fascist. Who do you think should be charged with cracking down on so-called bad information? Is it NPR? Is it the government? Is it you, Ms. Marr?
Congresswoman, Madam Chair, thank you so much for the opportunity to address this. I know.
Do you is it up to you and NPR to crack down on bad information or decide the truth? Answer the question, yes or no, Ms. Marr.
Absolutely not. I'm a very strong believer in free speech, and I believe that more speech.
Your public statements say otherwise. Ms. Marr, in 2021, when speaking at an Atlantic Council event, you said that when you were CEO of Wikipedia, you took a very active approach to disinformation and misinformation. During the COVID pandemic and the 2020 election, you said you censored information through conversations with government. Which governments were those, Ms. Marr? The Biden administration, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Wikipedia never censored any information.
These are your public statements, Ms. Marr. Ms. Marr, are you familiar with Section 399B of the Communications Act? It prohibits non-commercial education broadcast stations, NCEs, from airing commercials on behalf for profit entities. The FCC recently opened an investigation into the underwriting announcements and related policies of NPR and PBS. Does NPR air commercials for for-profit entities, Ms. Marr? Yes or no?
Madam Chair, we are in full compliance with the FCC's inquiry and will continue to cooperate.
I remind you, you're under oath, and violations of the Communications Act comes with a fine up to $10,000 and possibly up to a year in prison. Does PBS air for-profit commercials, Ms. Kruger?
We air underwriting announcements, and we believe we are in full compliance with the FCC, and we look forward to delivering the material required in this part of this investigation.
We look forward to that, too. I'm assuming you're concerned, both of you are concerned about this, and that's why you brought so many attorneys with you today. Ms. Kruger, using taxpayer subsidies, PBS funded Independent Lens to make documentaries for part of your programming. In 2016, Real Boy was aired about a trans teen navigating adolescent sobriety and the ramification of his gender identity. In 2022, the same series aired Our League, in which a trans woman comes to her old school Ohio bowling league in a story about transition. Then in 2024, Racist Trees was aired telling a story of how in Palm Springs, a black neighborhood fights to remove a divisive wall of trees. Do you think PBS needs to fund ridiculous material such as this that the taxpayers are having to pay for?
These are documentary films that are point-of-view pieces that are part of our primetime schedule for adults.
And parents and adults don't trust that type of programming.
So much. It should not be surprising that the president is doing everything possible to make it more difficult for the media to hold him accountable and for the public to be informed about his reckless and illegal behavior. Yet here we are. The Republicans have actually organized this goofy hearing to try to convince the American people that PBS and NPR are, quote, domestic terrorists, or domestic threats, my apologies, not the incompetent, unqualified Secretary of Defense who's texting war plans to journalists. But it's y'all, PBS and NPR, the American people are supposed to be worried about. You can't make this up. It's as stupid as it sounds. The American people should be worried about the president threatening to investigate NBC for treason for reporting on his felony convictions, or arresting reporters and stripping networks of their licenses for not saying nice things about him or not using Gulf of America. The Republicans' witness, Mr. Gonzalez, went so far as to suggest that because NPR and PBS reported on the murder of George Floyd, they, quote, represent a danger to our physical health as well as to civic health of our body politics. Ms. Mayor, do you think reporting on the murder of George Floyd and highlighting instances of systemic racism is a domestic threat to America?
Thank you, Congresswoman. I believe it's our responsibility to report on all issues of interest to the American public.
Thank you so much. Ms. Kerger, what about you?
I agree. I think it's important for us to report on the important news of the day.
So let's talk about the critical role of public media. During his first term, President Trump's own Department of Homeland Security highlighted the importance of public broadcasting's role in public safety. In 2018, his administration stated, quote, PBS and local public television stations play a crucial role in protecting communities by delivering essential information to individuals and first responders. These benefits are all made possible by public broadcasting stations' unique reach, reliability, and role across America, and are especially vital in rural and underserved areas. Madam Chairwoman, I would ask unanimous consent. I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the 2018
Without
report.
objection, so ordered.
And Madam Chair, I also seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the 2019 report titled Modernizing the Nation's Public Alert and Warning System from Trump's.
Without objection, so ordered.
In the report, FEMA encouraged, quote, the use of public broadcast capabilities to expand alert, warning, and communication capabilities to fill gaps in rural and underserved areas. Mr. Ullman, what's a more significant domestic threat, reporting the murder of George Floyd or dismantling most of America's emergency communication systems?
Can you please repeat the question for me, Congresswoman?
Which one is more of a threat, reporting the murder of George Floyd or dismantling most of America's emergency communication systems?
Dismantling the emergency systems.
And isn't it true that in Barrow, Alaska is the only, isn't it true that KBRWAM in Barrow, Alaska is the only broadcast service available in an area of more than 90,000 square miles?
That is correct. It's also the North Slope, where the majority of all the oil production that comes from Alaska takes place.
Thank you so much. And isn't it true that without these stations' broadcast, Americans in rural communities would lack access to life-saving information and public safety alerts?
That is correct.
So in your opinion, would eliminating funding for stations in rural America like WNGH Channel 18 in the Chairwoman's District hurt Americans?
It would hurt Americans, yes.
In fact, Georgia Public Broadcasting serves as the official distributor of evacuation route information during state-ordered evacuations, and the chairwoman is here advocating to strip their funding. Look, the DOGE agenda isn't about government efficiency. It's about breeding corruption at the expense of the safety of the American people, particularly Americans living in rural or remote parts of the country. They don't care about public safety. They don't care about emergency management, and they don't care about free speech, all of which are harming American people. In fact, I'm going to skip off real quick because they have tried to come for you, Ms. Mayor, and I just want to clarify, you did not work for NPR when those statements were made, did you?
That is correct, Madam
And to
Chair.
be clear, free speech is not about whatever it is that y'all want somebody to say. And the idea that you want to shut down everybody that is not Fox News is bullshit. We need to stop playing because that's what y'all are doing in here. You don't want to hear the opinions of anybody else. And the Constitution says Congress shall make no law respecting or establishing of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Press.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Madam Chairwoman, can I put something into the record? Unanimous consent, please.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. I'd like to put under the NPR article what Biden preemptive pardons for family members could mean for presidential powers. If I could submit to the record.
Without objection, so ordered. I now recognize the gentleman from Ohio, Jim Jordan, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Maher, who is Uri Berliner?
Welcome to Tariq Melrose Vlogs, the one channel where Republican gaslighting doesn't go unchecked, and where we shred their performative outrage with facts and fire. Today's installment, a congressional meltdown featuring none other than Marjorie Taylor Greene, getting obliterated in real time by Jasmine Crockett while trying to paint PBS, NPR, and Truth itself as domestic threats. Greene came in hot, ranting about crime, censorship, and somehow even transgender teens in public broadcasting documentaries. But let's be clear, this wasn't a fact-based critique of public media. It was a full-blown right-wing temper tantrum designed to undermine free speech and intimidate journalists who dare to report on America as it is rather than how MAGA fantasists wish it were. Let's rewind. Greene accuses Catherine Maher, former Wikipedia exec and current NPR CEO, of being the censorship queen. She cherry-picks out-of-context tweets, TED Talk quotes, and the entire concept of Wikipedia moderation as proof that Maher is some Orwellian tyrant. What Greene conveniently leaves out? That Maher wasn't even at NPR when those so-called offensive statements were made. But facts never stopped Greene. Her version of America only works if truth is subjective, journalism is criminalized, and anything that threatens the MAGA worldview is labeled a national emergency. It's not about free speech, it's about controlling speech. She also goes off about taxpayer funding for PBS documentaries like Real Boy and Our League, as if trans youth telling their stories is some kind of apocalyptic threat. Greene calls this material ridiculous. While giving full-throated support to January 6th insurrectionists, she literally high-fived in jail. You want to talk about taxpayer outrage? Try explaining to working families why Congress has time for witch hunts over documentary films while doing nothing about gun violence, climate change, or healthcare. Jasmine Crockett's response? Surgical. Precision. She reminds the committee that the Constitution doesn't say free speech, but only if Marjorie Greene likes it. She dismantles the entire premise of the GOP's faux outrage, that criticizing Trump, reporting on systemic racism, or airing diverse voices somehow constitutes sedition. Crockett draws the line between patriotism and propaganda, and she draws it bold. Let's not miss the underlying strategy. Greene and the far right want to gut NPR and PBS because they inform people. In rural America, public broadcasting is the only source of news, weather alerts, evacuation updates, and educational programming. Stripping their funding isn't just ignorant, it's dangerous. In fact, even Trump's own DHS acknowledged that public broadcasters are critical to emergency response infrastructure. But here we are, with Greene trying to yank funding from the very systems that keep vulnerable communities safe, all because PBS aired a film about a trans teen. That's not fiscal conservatism. That's performative cruelty. This is part of a broader Republican war on the First Amendment. Don't be fooled when they wave the Constitution around in one hand while defunding public media, banning books, silencing educators, and criminalizing journalists with the other. This isn't about balance. It's about erasure, and the hypocrisy is staggering. Greene cries that conservatives are being silenced while literally using her congressional mic to threaten, intimidate, and lie about journalists on live TV. She calls opposing views stupid. She refuses to yield. She labels anyone who disagrees with her a threat. This isn't policy, it's authoritarian cosplay. But you know what's worse? It's catching on. Jim Jordan jumps in with his own bad faith questions, pretending to defend free speech while advancing a narrative that if you report the truth, you deserve investigation. Reporting on the murder of George Floyd, according to the GOP, is more dangerous than dismantling emergency broadcast infrastructure. Let that sink in. Meanwhile, public media leaders calmly state the obvious. Yes, journalism means covering uncomfortable topics. Yes, it means telling the stories of Black families, of LGBTQ+ kids, of marginalized communities. And yes, it means holding power, including Greene's MAGA heroes, accountable. To Jasmine Crockett, Representative Garcia, Representative Raskin, and every Democrat who stood tall during that hearing, thank you. You reminded America what leadership looks like in the face of political theater and fascist flirtation. To the American people, don't let Marjorie Taylor Greene gaslight you. Your public media is not the enemy. Your freedom of speech is not negotiable. And your tax dollars should be funding truth, not tyranny. Thanks for watching Tariq Melrose Vlogs. If you believe that journalism is not a crime, that trans kids deserve to be seen, and that democracy requires an informed public, then hit subscribe, drop a comment, and keep showing up. Stay sharp, stay loud, and stay unapologetically free.